Namaste, yogis. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga podcast. We are so excited to welcome you here. This is episode 30, another little milestone, and we actually have some celebrations. Actually, before we get there, I'm Happy Jack live from Boston, Massachusetts, USA, and I am here with
Happy Hannah, who is in Bracebridge, Ontario, Canada.
nice. And you notice there was a little bit of a delay there from when we started the record until I started talking. I didn't hear it start. So either people who are listening to the podcast are not going to know what I'm talking about because you're going to fix that, or they're going to hear that little pause. But anyways, we're still learning here. But we have a lot to celebrate today. And the first thing we want to celebrate, which is super cool, Hanna, like over the years of doing this, we've, and this is never our intention, of course, but beautiful souls come together. Beautiful soul. Can can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay, just Alice can't. Okay. Beautiful souls come together, and it's never intended, but just this past week we saw Jeff, our dear friend Jeff, who's a former member of our team, and Ruby, who is also a member of the community. They had met at the Peru program 2022, and then just this past week they got engaged. So we are sending so much love, high vibes out to Jeff and Ruby. Amazing. And we can't promise this. We can't promise this. So we can't promise that you come to a program that'll happen. But it's kind of fun because there's been a couple other coming togethers. There was Saga and Lauri, who in Mallorca, Spain, 2017. Saga was there doing her 200-hour training. Lauri was there as our, super ninja videographer. They met and they've created a beautiful life together. And even a more recent example, our dear friends Ethan and Amber. Uh, and they met in Zoom just like this, just being able to connect like this. Ethan has since moved from New York down to Florida. They're bringing their families together. You just never know what is possible when you get into proximity with beautiful souls. Again, no promises, can't guarantee. Um, but we're really sending our love, high vibes to Jeff and to Ruby. I mean, in fact, Honda, you were there. You were there. You were leading that Peru training, and how glorious to see this happening.
Yeah, it's truly beautiful. I'm so happy for them.
Mm, I love it. So we're sending all of our love and high vibes to you. And another little fun celebration. I'm sure this is a little bit my ego speaking, but it's fun and it's playful. So sometimes when I'm here at school, I go for lunch and I get a salad bowl, right? Very yogic thing to do. I go get a salad bowl, add some of my favorite ingredients, and I get a pretty big one. Like I get a lot of extra ingredients. And the just the other day, and I'm there often, so they're getting to know me. And the guy, he's like, "Do you realize that you are unanimously the winner of putting the most ingredients on your salad? Nobody else comes close." And so I was like, "Yes," because I mean, let me just off the top of my head. So we do kale, spinach, broccoli, sweet potatoes, olives, chickpeas, black beans, avocado, almonds, olive oil, salt. I'm probably forgetting some, but just now it's not the most expensive bowl because some people put a bunch of meat, right, which gets more expensive, but it has the most ingredients. So, anyways, let's use that as a reminder for us as yogis to yeah to feed our bodies with high vibe nutrition. And the cool thing is when we
And to eat mindfully.
and eat mindfully.
Good
Yeah,
reminder.
I could probably slow down sometimes. But yeah, if it's a good one. Eat mindfully. I love it. And I'm getting my breakthrough moment is getting celebrated. Love it. Another celebration. Really wanted to open this call off with some celebrations. This past weekend, I mean, it sounds like maybe not a celebration, but this past weekend, Brandon and I, we were kind of working here at school. We were on campus, And when we were traveling home, we saw some people at the subway station, and they were smoking crack, right? They were, doing some really serious drugs. And I mean, it sounds like that's not a celebration, of course, but what it was for Brandon and I, who have been in that situation, we've been in those associations, in that proximity, doing those silly habits, many years ago, and obviously both of us sober from years, but just so much gratitude to, it's like these little decisions or big decisions, but these decisions that we make and these little, 1 degree shift or radical decision can just change the course of our life. Like just see, like again, we're sending love and compassion to these souls, but they're like they were missing their teeth. They probably much younger than us, looked much older than us. And it's truthfully, it was scary. Like like in our bodies, we physically felt like it's like, wow, so crazy and so grateful to not be in that space anymore.
Yeah, and it's like what you often talk about, like association, the people you surround yourself with, and and it must be such a huge contrast between that and the ashram life. Just
Yeah.
before this call, you told me that you saw Brandon and the monks walking on the street. That's pretty much the other extreme, I guess. That
That's the other extreme. Yeah, I was just sharing with Hundo, like seeing Brandon and the monks out there, and they were out like chanting mantra and just like beautiful high vibes, and like really out there to connect with people and to share love with people and to even distributing food and distributing wisdom in a loving way. It really does make a difference who we associate with, and that's why we are so grateful for the 8 yogis who are here live with us in Zoom. We appreciate you. And of course, everybody who's listening to the podcast in Spotify, in Apple. We know you're a part of the community as well. So thank you for being on this journey. But let's all just take a moment and think about, I mean, I'm sure most people here listening, have not, done crack, but there's things that we've perhaps there's things and situations that we've been in at an earlier stage of life. And oh my goodness, I just feel so much gratitude. And so even when things are not going perfectly, which they never are, um, sometimes just reflecting on where we were and where we are now can just totally shift things.
Yeah, there's a quote that I forget that goes something like, "Remember the time when you used to dream about being where you are now."
Mhm. Yeah, right. I mean, exactly. Like there was a time. That's why we have to really practice gratitude. Because 10 years ago, Hanna, we were sitting in Silvoplay, which is our favorite vegetarian restaurant in Helsinki, Finland. And we were hanging out at my grandma's cottage, Mökki, and we basically created this, right? I had my Excel spreadsheet, and we had our journals out, and we were like, oh yeah, leading yoga teacher training, and this was all a dream, and it was achievable, but none of it had manifested yet. There was no guide or mentor, nobody to hold our hand along the way. And but from that dream, from speaking it into reality, from associating, you and I associating together and believing in it, it's pretty cool what we get to do now, and just being with, again, all these beautiful souls.
Yeah, supporting each other in that process. And that's what I feel like this whole community is about. Happy Jack Yoga is not about you or me,
No.
but it's a co-creation of everyone who's part of it, and all our participants. If you read the reviews on Google or the the survey we ask after they graduate, most of them are most grateful for the friends they make and the support they receive from each other. Like a lot of
Yeah.
it, you and I aren't even involved because they are in teams and they meet people, like you were saying in the beginning. Sometimes they meet their life partners even, and best friends. And these environments are great places to, associate with. That's one of the reasons why I in Helsinki felt like I want to get back into yoga, like seriously, because I thought it was an exciting kind of parallel reality to what's typical in our culture.
Mm, yeah. And for us as yoga teachers, it's important for us. You shared about these testimonials that we have on the Google reviews or on Facebook, or thank you for those, the reviews on the podcast, Spotify, Apple. It's important to share those as well. With that's why we're more active putting things on social media. And on one way, as yogis, we want to practice humility, right? And like letting go of the ego. But the reality is, like, some people are looking for this and craving this, and they can really benefit and change their lives from being in proximity and meeting amazing people like Sue and Sam and Yada and Danica and Alice and Bev. Like, really being able to meet people like this, and it can change the course of their life. So I feel like us as yoga teachers and yogis, we have a duty or an obligation, or at least an opportunity to, when we do have a positive impact and somebody shares that, to not be afraid to share it as a testimonial and let people know, because there will be people out there that it speaks to, and then we get to spread the love of yoga. So nice one. Speaking of Finland and Helsinki, Finland, and you being a Finn, Hanna, I had a very Finnish experience yesterday. I was in my Sanskrit class, and so we're getting towards the end of the semester, and I've shared, like, it's getting pretty challenging. This is towards the end of intermediate here, intermediate Sanskrit, and I asked my professor, who was sitting there, and the other classmates were there as well, but I was no problem. And I said, hey, listen, it's been quite challenging for me this year. I crushed it in elementary. Intermediate's been really tough. And I said, straight up, be honest with me. Do I have what it takes to move on to advanced next year? And he looks at me and he says, no. And I just so appreciated that honesty, because I think that, and I know I've been guilty of it myself, where we, say things to make people feel good or warm and fuzzy, like, oh yeah, you can do it. And of course we want to believe in people and we want to hold space in people. But I appreciate that he was just, he's Korean. Maybe they're like the Finns, where they speak straight, and they don't sugarcoat it. And he's like, honestly, Jack, I think you'd really benefit hugely from going through the intermediate course again, because many people go through intermediate multiple times. We're going to be doing different texts. We're going to do Bhagavad Gita next year. And I think it would be much more rewarding and fulfilling to solidify those intermediate level skills than to, for your ego or for whatever reason, to just move on to the advanced and then really struggle. So I guess it was just a moment of, I think if I was younger, I would have been like, I would have felt insecure, because he said that in front of all my peers, who, for the most part, they are ready to go on to advanced, but they're like super smart and half my age, and I'm okay with that. But like, I just felt so grateful that he spoke the truth. And I feel like it's important to have people like that in our lives.
Yeah, and isn't it liberating? And then also like a great kind of reality check with yourself too. How that made you feel, and how you can see the flip side of it. Could be like the younger version of you would have maybe felt insecure, but
Yeah.
now it feels like a great opportunity, and you're gonna really love it next year.
Exactly. Yeah. And it felt like there was, I mean, he spoke integrity, right? He spoke the truth, and it allows me to make some decisions now, because it's like, okay, now, instead of just like, doing something that I thought was the right thing, now I have like the facts to really make an informed decision. So that was yeah, super helpful. And I just do a shout out to our friend Alice, who's on here, who has begun her Sanskrit studies with our dear friend Professor Edwin Bryant. So so much respect for you, Alice, and anybody who's listening. In fact, I think it's the oh my goodness, which course is it? It's one of the philosophy courses that I teach. Either it's the yoga philosophy and spirituality, or Bhagavad Gita, or Bhakti yoga. or Buddhist psychology. I think it might have been the first one, yoga, philosophy, and spirituality. But in that one, you get that first taste of Sanskrit. You get exposed to it. You get to write your name in it using the Devanagari script, and
Tell me the ratio of how many people get it right. Zero.
that was yeah.
Show
But
me zero with
everybody,
these hands.
but that's why I tell everybody when you submit in our course, when you submit your name, I say before you get the tattoo on your arm, send it to me so I can, just validate and verify we get it correct. No, because in a way, I set people up to, I mean, I don't give enough information to get it right. I just give the basic letters, and it's not as simple as just picking, for your name, Hanna, I can't just take an Hanna, 5 independent letters. It doesn't work that way. That's not how they get put together. But it's fun. And, as Professor Bryant was saying the other day, I mean, it's what, yeah, he said essentially it'll help prevent becoming senile. So if you think about older people who become senile, and it's just so good to keep our brains active in this way. And I loved what he said. And this is a really good tip for all of us, whether you want to learn Sanskrit or not. He said it in his usual humor. He's like, hey, if you got a goal to learn Sanskrit or whatever it is, each of you think about whatever that goal is. If you have a goal to do it, it's really simple. Go into your living room, grab your TV, go put it out on the front lawn to get picked up next week where the garbage comes in. No, joking. Essentially, and not saying you have to throw out your TV, but we somehow find time to catch that Netflix show, or it's a scroll through the social media or whatever it is. And so if we can, retrieve some of that time and dedicate that to svadhyaya, studying these sacred scriptures, learning a new language, getting on our yoga mat for an extra 15 minutes, any of these things, right? It's a very small percentage of us that are ready to go study Sanskrit. However, there's something that all of us can benefit from, be it meditation, pranayama, asana, yoga nidra, etc. So it's simple. What do you think, Hanna? You ready to toss out the TV?
Yeah, I don't have one.
That's
I
right.
would toss it out if I had one.
How cool is that? We
Mm.
we know we've known
I
each
don't
other
think I've
10
ever
years.
had one.
That's right. Now, to be fair, we do have functional laptops and computers that play Netflix and Prime and those kind of things. But yeah, no, it's really smart to create those environments that allow us to focus on the things that matter most. So that was a fun little one. And then the last celebration, my goodness, we're using a few moments here for celebrations. But the last celebration yesterday again for session number 8 with my therapist. Got to meet with my therapist, and oh my goodness, it changes everything. It's like, as I say it every 2 weeks when I get to meet, but it really makes a difference. And there's so many insights that I could share about, but one thing that I recommitted to, and I've just started, and yesterday was the first day, but I've recommitted to a journaling practice. That's something I did it very consistently in my first year of school here at Harvard. I did it very consistently in the morning and the evening, and I was working with my planner. We're actually in the process of creating a Happy Jack yoga planner. We really need to finish that project. Um, and then in this second year, especially living at the ashram, I've just kind of lost that practice. And I was looking for a way. Essentially I was asking her, I'm looking for a way, to pray to divinity, to have a conversation to divinity, to connect. How can we connect to our higher power? And there's a lot of different ways we can do it. And I just, one of the ways we talked about was journaling, and just sharing our heart, bearing our soul, asking questions, asking for guidance, being open to receiving signs, all of this kind of stuff. And so yesterday was day one, but I'll pause there. What do you think, Hannah? Journaling, yay or nay? What do you think?
I think journaling, yay. And I think your question of how to connect with divinities and even more interesting that you would end up with that answer living at the ashram and doing all the sacred
Mm.
practices. And last time you talked about japa. Um, so, and yogasana, like there's a lot of things you do in a day. Like there's got to be a 50 million things you do in a day, and all of those can connect you with divinity, I would think.
You're absolutely right. That's a great distinction I should make. So I guess it's not so much about connecting to divinity, because you're right. I do so many practice to connect with it. What I was looking for is to be able to have a conversation. Because I feel like even though I'm very open, like I don't hold back on this podcast. I don't hold back on our Sunday satsang community calls. I don't hold back speaking with you, Hannah. Um, and the reality is I can't rely, I don't think any of us should rely on another human being um to just like, hey, tell me what to do. I think in one way we need to discover that for ourselves. But I guess although I feel like I'm on the right path for the most part, but I guess I'm just like craving this ability to have a conversation with the divinity. Like we know our Christian community that we grew up in, and that we're, people in our community, right? You can pray at the side of your bed, pray to Jesus. And the when I was living in Kashmir, India, with the Muslims, I mean, 5 times a day, they drop down to their knees at certain times and they're praying to Allah. And of course, in the very various yogic traditions, there's ways to pray to divinity as well. But I guess for me, it's never really been a part of my practice, my like to pray, like asking for guidance. I'm not asking for money or any material kind of things like that. It's like I'm asking for, like, how can I, like, please, how can I best serve? How can I serve? Like, I know that what we're doing is making a difference, making a contribution. We're being of service, and I guess I'm, just kind of seeking that guidance from somebody other than friends like yourself and therapists and people in my life. Kind of that's that. I guess that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and some say that that exact yearning is God speaking to us, it
Mm,
calling us to God or goddess, whatever the definition of that higher power for us is.
interesting. Yeah. Well, then I'll start listening. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And to be figuring this out. And like you say, there's so many different ways to connect with divinity. The other thing that I uh began yesterday that feels so good, it's a new practice. I've only done it one day. But you know how I do the morning rituals at the ashram, like religiously, consistently every single day. And then I come off to school here, right? And I'm working with Happy Jack Yoga, and I'm doing my studies at Divinity School. And then I usually, come back to the ashram in the evening, and I'm pretty wiped out. And so I just kind of shower, get organized for the next day, and then go into bed, read, fall asleep. Not a bad system at all. But there's also these evening programs, right? Where the yogis and the devotees are coming together and doing these prayers
Which
and worship in that.
all the followers of the podcast know by now that those evening activities typically are not part of your ashram
Ah,
experience. Because,
right.
right?
Because why?
Because you go to bed at 6 to read sacred text and then go to
Ah,
your sacred sleep.
yeah, sacred sleep. Yeah. So I made this decision because one of there's the two evening programs are at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Well, 8 p.m. is definitely way past my bedtime. That's just not even in the realm of possibility. But 6 p.m. is doable. And so what I decided and this is where we got to, juggle things around. So now at 6 p.m., I go and do that half-hour program, right? I did it once yesterday and I plan to continue. But spending that half an hour at the end of the day, right? So I've did the morning practices, been out working hard, using my brain, using my body, walking all over campus. And then at 6 p.m. to come back to the ashram and spend 30 minutes in prayer and meditation and worship and like connecting to my heart, it felt beautiful. It felt so good. And then from there, went upstairs, did my journaling practice, right? Where I journaled like 2 pages, and then hit the hay and went to bed. And my Aura ring, which tracks my sleep, says, Jack, you got a fantastic sleep. Your resilience is exceptional. It's at the highest it's ever been. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of different variables, but it felt good. It felt right. And so as an experiment, I'm going to keep it up and see what happens.
That's really interesting that you would do the evening practice and then journal after. Because typically would think about journaling as a morning activity because of the morning pages that we probably
Yeah.
all of us are familiar to. So it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting that you would flip that and that it felt so good is great. That it didn't like activate your mind more, but maybe it's more like a gratitude journaling then, or
Yeah, that's a good point. I will have to be mindful what I journal about, because if I journal about like projects and initiatives and big goals and visions for Happy Jack Yoga, then I could set myself up for a busy mind in the evening. But it seemed to work. And I guess this is where, for all of us, just to think about the different practices and different rituals we have. Again, every time we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to something else. And so, the yogis at the ashram, they're very enthusiastic. So at the end of that half an hour worship, they were so pleased to see me there because I've never been there. They were so pleased because they see me there every morning. And then, for the first time they saw me in the evening. So then after they're like, hey, stick around longer. We're gonna read some of this book together and we're gonna, do this and that. And I had to just kindly, thank them for the invite and go up to bed. But even just by doing that evening prayer and that evening journaling, I didn't have any time to do any reading. So it's like, I mean, I know first world problem here, but we have to just be mindful of our time because like every time we say well yes to one thing, it's squeezing out time to do other things. And so that's why, it's good to take the TV, put that, not really throw it out and gift it or do something, sell it, or whatever. I'm not saying whatever anybody else needs to do, but let's be intentional with how we use our time.
hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and let's listen to the yearning,
Yeah.
because I think there's different ways to respond to that.
Yeah. That's right. And I really see this as an experiment. Like it feels right. And I'm sure it's not like for the rest of my life, I'm going to do exactly this, but this feels right. This feels right at the moment. And just like, I think that's why I felt like such a sense of ease when the Sanskrit teacher looked me in the eye yesterday and said, "Nope, sorry, bud. He didn't say that, but sorry, you're not ready for advanced." Or I wouldn't advise it. Of course, he would welcome me to it, but he wouldn't advise it. I felt a sense of ease because it's like, it feels right to not rush. I'd rather take my time and really learn this, really integrate this. There's no end goal. And the same thing with that practice last night. So
Yeah,
I'll keep you posted.
yeah, sounds good.
Mm, I love it. Well, on to that. So from there, this next topic. So we're complete with the celebrations. This next topic, I almost got to put a warning out front. It's not a trigger warning, but it's a warning that this might not be a popular opinion. Might not be a popular opinion among even our community at Happy Jack Yoga, who we love everyone so much. And so this came up last week with Professor Francis Clooney in our Yoga Sutras class, and we were talking about the yamas and the niyamas. And in particular, we were talking about ahimsa. So that was the very first yama, and the yama is the first limb, and the very first yama of 5 is ahimsa. Do you recall, Hanna, what ahimsa means in English?
Yeah, it means nonviolence towards
Nonviolent.
self and
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, nice. Nice distinction. And so we were talking about that. And I love though that you, with full integrity, recognize it's nonviolence towards self and nonviolence towards others. And I guess I wanted to just share this and share some of the conversation on this because different yoga teachers and different yogis can sometimes interpret things in a way to make them feel like they're still in integrity, or to make them, and again, we're not here in any way to say that everybody should do this or should not do this. But anyway, so getting to the point, one of the other students in the class who is like us, she's a yoga teacher. She certifies yoga teachers. And she, when we were talking about what ahimsa is, and she's like, well, I think really, excuse me, ahimsa is, as long as we are not harmful with our words, like it's okay to eat animals, as long as we're like, with our words we don't harm others. And I've seen her, she's the one who's eating chicken salad in class, which is, I think, is kind of interesting. But just to be clear, like ahimsa, I mean, what it's alluding to is nonviolence towards animals, nonviolence towards humans. And I know, and the reason I know that it might not be a popular conversation is lots of people on this call, lots of people in this community eat animals, or eat eggs and fish and wild game, whatever it happens to be. So this is not a judgment in any way, but I think for us as yogis, we should understand what the intention is. And so I guess first I wanted to say, we create a very inclusive environment in the sense that, regardless what people's nutrition choices are, whatever, regardless what their beliefs are, wisdom tradition, faith tradition, color of skin, sexual preference, all of these, and again, what they eat, everyone welcome. And again, our dear friend, Professor Brian, Alice will know this. She's been studying with him lately. He presented to us, what did Patanjali mean? What did Patanjali mean? And so a few statements that he said, certainly one can be very clear about the fact that eating meat or nourishing one's body at the expense of the flesh of another living being is completely taboo for aspiring yogis. And he went and said, a vegetarian diet is non-negotiable for yogis. Now, again, I'm not here to preach and say everybody needs to do that, but let's understand that would be, if we wanted to follow in adherence the yamas and the niyamas, that would be the way to do it. And he said something which I thought was really powerful, and I'll open it to you in a second, Hannah. And by the way, what I love, Hannah, and I appreciate, I know you're not strict veg, and I totally respect that, and I think a lot of others on this call will relate. So there's no expectation of that. But something he kind of put out to us on a call recently. He said, "How many of you?" And so this is a question for everybody listening. How many of you could go up to an animal, maybe a pet, but okay, maybe if like put pets aside because they're like family, but how many of you could go up to an animal like a cow or a pig or a chicken and pet them and look them right in the eye and do the be with, like really be present with that animal, and then take a knife and cut their throat and kill them? I know that sounds harsh, and for some of you, I apologize if that was jarring. But he said, for most of us, that would not be an easy thing to do. And so he said, well, we're from no judgment, but let's think about that. What is it? What is it that makes it hard for us to look an animal in the eye, pet it, love it, take care of it, brush its hair, look it in the eye, and then kill it? What is it that makes it hard for us to do that? It's typically because we see some commonality. We see something, we see that it's a living being. We see a consciousness in there. And so then, it's like, so if we're not willing to do that, but it's okay if we kind of turn a blind eye and somebody else catches and kills the fish, or somebody else catches and shoots the animal, or, again, I don't want to make this about preaching again, because I know, Hannah, I totally respect you're not strict veg, and most of the people here are not. But I thought, even though it's not a popular opinion, just to put it out there for us, something to think about, for those of us who want to live the yamas and the niyamas. And again, I'll just circle it back before I bring it to you, Hanna. I think what kind of brought up emotion for me this past week in class was that this yoga teacher who certifies yoga teachers, it's not just the fact that she's eating chicken in class and not being vegetarian, because I'm not going to judge that because most of the population is like that. But the fact that she was twisting the understanding of ahimsa to make it mean that it's okay, you're still following ahimsa if you're eating animals, but it's more about how you speak your words to others. And so I guess that's when, and then I got involved in the conversation, and you could tell I was a little bit emotional, and I wrote about it in my reflection. So I let go of that, and from a place of love and non-judgment. What's on your heart, I guess, Hannah, when you hear those?
Um, it's a big topic, obviously,
Yeah.
and having been vegetarian and vegan for most of my life, I know what it feels like to think the way you do, and it's very natural to me as well. Like when I got my dog is when I felt like I cannot eat animals. If I, if I love him, then how can I eat animals? So I can certainly empathize and sympathize, and I understand that thinking, and I think it's a huge thing about, it's a big lesson in compassion, I think, to be vegetarian. So that's something that is very natural in the paradigm that I inhabit. But then I also think that as humanity, we've been thousands of years, I don't know how many millions of years we've existed, but we have gathered and hunted, and I don't think it makes us bad. And I also think that not everybody needs to be a yogi by definitions of Patanjali, and that life is big and mysterious, and not to justify, but I don't know that anything is that simple. Like, I understand, Jack, you like to create rules and be an inquiry around them and have certainty. And that's one of the expressions of it, is to be an inquiry around different rules and setups that, you like to kind of create your life around.
Mhm.
And then maybe the conversation sometimes can be about like you just being an inquiry around what that means for yourself rather than preaching, so that it doesn't come across as preaching. But
Mhm.
you know I think it's an the nutrition choices that we make come from within, and that we should respect that. And I don't think somebody who eats animals is a less compassionate or less of a yogi, or um I kind of don't like to think in extremes, you know.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's nice reflections. And I guess to your point, what I agree with there is that what Professor Bryant was presenting, and really what I'm presenting, and what I guess, to be fair, him and I are biased in the sense that we are aspiring yogis. We are like to follow the yogic tradition, Patanjali, and even next level beyond Patanjali as a bhakti yogi. And so for us, this foundational yamas and niyamas is very important. But to your point, not everybody is aspiring to be a textbook yogi. We can all be a part of a yoga community, as we all are here now, and we can loosely, or we can straight up identify as yogis. I guess I just wanted to make that distinction, and not to. I just appreciate we can have the conversation, and I think it's really healthy. I hope it's healthy for others to see that even if you and I have a slightly different perspective, we can still coexist, and we can still collaborate, and we can still co-create together, and and kind of hold the space for people to do what feels right for them at a certain stage, right? Because as you mentioned, you've been vegetarian and vegan for a lot more years than I have. It just so happens that I am now, and you're not as strictly. So
And it's not long time ago when you had fish and eggs.
yeah, yeah. At one point there, I tried it again at the encouragement of my trainer. That was like 5 or 7 years ago. Yeah. So it's again, I guess I wanted to present that information because it's yogic, it's from the Yoga Sutras. It's, I wanted to bring Professor Bryant's, very erudite, straight up, and he can get very passionate about what he believes and just things to think about. And again, I'll share truthfully, the reason I went vegetarian and vegan was really more of a selfish reason. And that's something Professor Bryant talked about, is that a lot of people become vegetarian for more of the selfish reason, either for their health benefits or to save the planet or for economical reasons. And of course, those are all good reasons, but the most compassionate one would be to practice ahimsa, nonviolence. But for myself, I really made the choices, in 2010 now, I really made those choices for my own personal health benefits. And only in time have I cultivated this compassion and this desire for more bhakti. And so again, I guess we want to reiterate collectively, you and I, we want to reiterate, all are welcome. For those who are out there, my friends who are watching this, who are deer hunting and moose hunting, no judgment. No, because we're all on this journey.
Yeah, and I think like kind of as a conclusion, I would want to say that there's not one religion that is the right one for everybody. There's not one nutritional plan that works and is perfect for every single. Like if there was one thing that worked and was right in any regard for everybody, then we'd all be doing that, right? So I think that's why we are towards the inclusive way of being a community rather than anything else. And then we can openly discuss what we find, right?
That's right. Yeah. So very nice. Well, we allowed ourselves to go deep there for a moment, and I'm really happy we did. And but let's shift in these last quarter of the podcast because it's hot seat time. And Hanna is putting me on the hot seat, and I'm ready. Bring it on. What you got? I'm
So
just
I want to
kidding.
hear from you now. What is the biggest lie you've ever told that you did not get caught for?
The biggest lie I've ever told that I didn't get caught for. So that would mean that I did something wrong. So not just a white lie, but that I did something wrong. Uh, I'll call myself. I mean, I've said it, but I haven't shared all the details. Like I mean, cheating on my first wife, I didn't get caught for that, but I guess I've said that. I've said that on social media now. Um, I guess that's like the thing that really felt bad about. Um, what's the biggest lie that I didn't get caught? I mean, I've since told her, but I didn't get caught at the time. Biggest lie that I didn't get caught. I guess I think I've mentioned in recent episodes, like I'm trying so hard now. Like in fact, I sometimes have to. I'm pretty much to the point where I don't hold anything back, um, on podcasts, on satsang. Like want to. I really just want to be able to speak my truth, and I don't think it's because of any like big lies, but it's just like little things where like wanting to do this certain practice, but not making the time for it, whether it's the journaling, whatever it happens to be. I wish I could come up with a big juicy one. If it came to my mind, I'd let you know.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess
hmm,
it's the fact that you don't have one, then maybe also that it's not something you do a lot. And you've talked about most of the things that you might not be proud of from the past, including lies. So
yeah,
maybe that's why I don't have a fresh one.
yeah, I don't. I don't.
Hmm.
but I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I
If you lie, we'll be the first to know. The
yeah,
podcast.
nice one.
I
All right,
love
what else you got?
it. We go deeper into the subtle layers with
Uh-huh.
this question. And
Actually, I just want to say because maybe I didn't realize it, but I've been yogic. But the second, I don't know if it's the second, but also one of the yamas and niyamas is Satya, which is truth. So first nonviolence and second truth. And this is where we have to be careful. Did I talk about this, or was this in a Harvard class, or was this on the podcast? I'm not sure, but I'll say it again because sometimes we have to balance that. Like what's more important, non-harm or telling the truth? Because sometimes our words or speaking the truth could actually cause some harm to someone. And so ahimsa is the first. So nonviolence is even a little bit above truth. So if the truth is going to cause harm, then sometimes we even hold that back. I'll just make that little Yoga Sutra teaching.
yeah. Yeah, and that's what maybe you talk a lot about, like how to balance, how to present things so that it comes across the right way, and you know,
Yeah.
so it doesn't, that so that it isn't harmful.
That's something I think about a lot, and others can think about that as well as yogis and yoga teachers. Like wherever I am, this environment on the podcast or with our Sunday satsang, our community, or one-on-one with you, Hanna, or family members, I'm always committed to speaking the truth and being my most authentic self that I can be. However, depending on the context, the environment, who is there, I might present things a little bit different. And so it's never a lie. It's never being deceiving, but sometimes might withhold or present just so that just to not cause any harm or not cause any worry to other
And
people.
conflict, I think a big thing you want to avoid is conflict.
That's true. Yeah, and that I guess that would be a personal thing, wanting to avoid conflict. And I feel like the biggest thing is I don't want to hurt anybody. I wouldn't want to make anybody feel comfortable. I try so hard to create an environment where people feel welcome and seen and heard and loved
And now my
that
question is why? Why is it so important to you that nobody feels uncomfortable?
because I've been in that situation where I didn't.
Because you
Because
felt uncomfortable.
I felt uncomfortable. I felt teased. I felt bullied. I felt picked on. I've been standing up in the middle of class and I won't call out names, but had, one of my classmates in public school grab my pants, pull my pants and my underwear right down at my ankles and standing there in the middle of class. I've had, somebody pull out my underwear and hold it up in front of all the girls and it had some marks in it. I've been called names and it gives, and not that I judge or anything. These are just kids who are just being kids based on the conditioning they have. So there's zero judgment. But I think having been teased and picked on and bullied, I just have a different level of compassion. And last night I was riding the subway home from school back to the ashram, and a woman got on, and I was sitting down because I had been on for a bit, and a woman got on, and she was quite heavy, and so and I could tell like she could have really wanted to sit down, and nobody was getting up. So I mean myself having been weighed the same as she does. Like I got up and I said, hey, I'm getting off at the next stop. Would you please take my seat? Because I could tell she didn't want to ask somebody. She kind of didn't, at least I knew how I felt. I didn't want to inconvenience anybody. I didn't want to make a deal, but I could tell that she really needed to sit down. And as I'm not sharing this to be some saint at all, but it's like, I guess I just have this awareness. I'm looking for people that are maybe vulnerable or for whatever reason. You'll remember Hanna for the Natural High Healing Festival. There's that great story of Nora, beautiful soul. And so we were leading this festival. This is like in the countryside in Finland, hundreds of hippies, like we're talking hippies, right? And we're in this barn teaching a yoga class. Here's how hippie it was. I hope I can share this on the podcast. But well, in the middle of leading a yoga class, there's like people having sex over in the corner of the barn under a
In a
whatever.
yoga class, we're all in a big circle, so it's not like
Right.
somewhere like completely in our sight, a couple of meters to the right, basically.
Yeah. So we're talking, it was hippie. This is like Woodstock 69 or Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco in the 60s. And so we were leading that class, and it's a big class, right? And then in comes Nora, this beautiful soul, and she's in a wheelchair, and she's a full-grown woman, and she's maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall, right? So she has some kind of something,
Yeah, we don't know the name of that. It's a thing
right?
that you can be born with.
Right. And so she was very small, and so she couldn't walk on her own. And she came in the class, and I think that some yoga teachers might feel a little bit insecure of like, whoa, what am I going to do? Like, here's this person is in a wheelchair. They have some serious limitations. I was planning to teach sun salutations, and now I don't know what to do. But just remembering that yoga is about union and connection and love and bringing people together. So I ran right over there and introduced myself and welcomed her and gave her a hug and brought her into the circle and introduced her to people. And then when we were doing the poses, we were doing the heart opening poses, and I had her like lying across my legs. So she was doing a heart opener, and she was just like giddy like a schoolgirl, just like enjoying it and just feeling a part of the yoga class. And so again, I think I say that just because I again myself having been in situations where I didn't feel welcome, I didn't feel
Mhm.
good enough, I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel, and this is not my family. I'm talking, getting teased by whatever kids at school, but just going through those things, I do everything I can to make people to feel welcome and to feel loved and seen and understood. And I'm sure I'm not perfect. I'm sure I haven't always made you feel that way, Hannah. I'm sure sometimes we fall short. But that's certainly an intention that I have, and that's why.
Yeah, it's a sensitivity you have, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I genuinely feel like our past life experiences, using a term that you love, Hannah, can be our superpowers, right?
Mm.
It's like if I didn't, I'm so grateful. I'll call it. I'm so grateful that Brent pulled my pants down in the middle of class. I'm so grateful, that Dwayne teased me, that Corey grabbed my underwear and held it up in front of all the girls, and I was so embarrassed. I'm so grateful for those and all the other adversities that I've shared, because it allows me to connect and understand and appreciate how people might be feeling,
Yeah.
whatever it is that they're navigating.
But also to like maybe, I don't know if this is accurate, but like it seems to be a little bit the way people at that age kind of are and socialize. Like it's not like you were some outcast in your class. Would that be accurate to say?
For sure. I think that's a good distinction. That's right. Because I'm sure for sure, some people are teased and bullied really badly. Right. And that's so not cool. It's not like every day I was getting my lunch money taken, every day I was getting beaten up, and every day it wasn't like that. Like I was still a part of the friend
So you
group.
bullied others.
I'm sure I have. I don't know. I probably, but no, but the point being, I was like friends with those people.
Mm.
Is just like on a few occasions, they did these things, which are just childish things that could, for them, it meant nothing. They'll not even remember it for the rest of their life. It'll have zero impact. But I will never forget the day that
Mm.
I came out of the shower at Yearly up in Ontario. Yearly, it is a grade 8 trip, and my underwear wasn't there. And Corey S is holding my underwear up and showing, and all the girl and teasing, and because there's marks in there. And like I was devastated as grade 8, like 13,
Sure.
and he won't remember that probably. And again, not saying that's like the worst thing in the world, because it didn't happen every day. It's not like I was repeatedly bullied, but like that one thing had such an impact. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it must have been very embarrassing at that age. Like everything's embarrassing, and let alone something as intimate as that, for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
and it's impacted you. And I'm sure you're not the only one. I'm sure the other kids, if they have any, you know, sensitivity towards and they remember, or if they didn't just kind of push it away like most people do, and maybe you did for some years too, they
Mm.
might have similar stories and similar impacts, but that seems like something we don't talk a lot about. And that's where I think also like talking about like what it means to be in a male body and going through all of what's expected of guys, and in terms of like how they should just like deal with those kind of things without being impacted. I think this is a powerful story in showing that um, males are sensitive as well, and all of these things leave an impact and a trace in, because sometimes we're like being role modeled that guys should not cry and not have, you know, wounds in that way. But the more I study and the more I listen, I feel like the more I also learn to not be so assuming about
Mm.
boys and men's experience. And we talked about this during the Yoga for Mental Health course. There was one student who was willing to share about what it feels like to be a man in the female yoga space, because most yoga classes are packed with women, and then if you're the only guy, not to he wasn't making it like, oh, there's a problem or anything, but he was like just kind of explaining it in a very sensitive way, like you are explaining these memories right now, and what that feels like and what we might assume as women, and how might we have more compassion and openness and curiosity towards the male experience as well. And that's how they say like patriarchy impacts the guys as well in not empowering ways. You know,
Mm.
these are what you're sharing is really vulnerable, and I think something we should discuss more, and be more open about it, like the way you are. I hope that the world would be such a safe space now where we could be open about the impact of life and of whether it's a female or a male experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's I guess, coming back to your question, that's why I'm kind of practicing to the best of my ability to be open and honest and authentic and not lie and practice truthfulness. And again, I got to this individual I mentioned, Corey. I saw him over the Christmas break. I was out at a hockey game with my brother, and he happens to be the coach of like another team that they were playing against. And so I told my brother this story, and truthfully, like now he used to be like the tall, fit, good looking, popular, all the good things. And now I got to be practiced not to be self-righteous, because he hasn't aged as a non-yogi. He hasn't aged maybe as well as all of us yogis. But yeah, not being, practicing not self-righteousness, but just having that compassion, because we were just kids. We did things, we said things, we acted in certain ways, and now we just do the best we can and learn from it. And but I appreciate the conversation and beautiful questions.
Yeah, thanks for being vulnerable and open.
Yeah. Well, our friends, thank you for being here. I love it. Really appreciate those who are here live with us. If you would feel so inclined, stay on for an extra couple of moments after. We'll debrief and would love to hear your feedback. And no problem if you got to step away. But make it an amazing rest of the day. And we'll see you soon, my friend. Namaste.
Namaste.